Hi, my name is Wayne, and this is Type Tested. More work on the Oliver 5 today, but today is going to be something a little bit different. Rather than doing a repair, I'm going to show you a little bit of cleaning. I am going to show you how to take this and turn it into this. And unfortunately, it will not be 3 easy steps, as the cliche goes. So, the first thing I need to do is to get the key top off of here. That is done by simply loosening that screw. You don't have to take it all the way out. And the key will pull off of the key lever. Now, you'll notice there's quite a bit of rust on here. So what I do with that is I use some rust removing gel. I mean, you can use Evapo-Rust liquid, but it will take quite a while to soak. So this will work in about an hour, whereas the soak will take overnight. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to glop this on. Just kind of let it dribble all over. And I'll use the tip of a screwdriver to make sure that every bit of metal is covered. There's one place where magnetic screwdrivers do not help. Clean that off. And now, while I'm letting that soak, as I said, it'll take about an hour, I'm going to clean this off. And this is where the bronze brushes come in really handy. So I'll let that soak for just a few seconds. And I have this brush, which has been really heavily worn. This is closer to new, and you can see just how ridiculous it is. But it works for rough work like this, whereas this is for a little bit finer stuff. So this I consider something I use for the fairly aggressive stuff. And I can also use this steel toothbrush that I bought here. But this tends to be a little bit more abrasive than that in terms of leaving scratches. So I just had a chance to soak. Give it a good scrub. Don't forget to do the inside surfaces. Now what I will do is I'll take advantage of the fact that I have a flat desk with an edge on it, so I can put this drop off of it. Then I can scrub the edge right here as a little spring that holds the tight bar to the key lever. All right, take this, clean off my desk. And you'll also note that I have a plastic cover over my particular work table. That's both to get rid of the joint here and also to make sure that the table itself is protected so that I can keep both of them in pretty good condition. All right, so you can already see, compared to one of these others, that this is a substantial difference, but it still is not what I ultimately want it to be. So we're going to have to keep going. Just a moment to move some things around over here. All right. Now, the next order of business is the polishing. And this is definitely overkill. I understand that. I don't need to do this, but it can make a difference in the appearance. And this, I remind you, is my own collection, not something for a client. I would never do this for a client because you could never justify the expense of doing this much work. There are 28 key levers. I am down to my last 4, and it has taken me probably 20 hours just on these. Maybe closer to 14, but still. So now this is Flitz, and I'll take a good generous quantity and I will put a decent amount of pressure on it. rub it back and forth in my hands. And I'm varying the pressure, so I'm kind of moving over here and back here on both sides to make sure it's even. You can see the amount of garbage I pull off of that. Some of that is little bits of metal. Some of it is dirt. And this is why I'm using flitz in here. It's not so much that I want to polish it. That is part of the objective, but it's simply the fact that there's dirt on here, as you can tell, that I can't get off with just the cleaner. So sometimes I use flitz more as a cleaner than as a polish. On the end here, it's a little bit different, and you'll notice that there's not a lot of metal right here. This is one of the flaws, I think, in the design of the Oliver, is that this should have been a little bit thicker to make it more robust. Oh, I also mentioned in a previous video, I didn't know what that hole was for. Well, I figured that out. That is because this is how the earlier mechanisms were attached. So this allows this key lever to be used as a replacement for an earlier unit. Now, take this, kind of move it around in my fingers here. And then I'm going to set it down, give the little bits of this a more particular going over. I'm going to do that on both sides. Now you can do this with a polishing wheel, but first, I don't have one, and second, they present their own problems. You have to make sure that you have the right kind of wheel, and in this case, it would probably be a moderately tightly sewn cotton wheel. But you also have to worry about things getting caught, like this bit here, and pulling it out of your hand, or something getting bent or broken. It's also true with this spring. So it can help if you're careful with it, and you watch your RPM, but it can also cause problems. So it's a lot more elbow grease than I really wanted to do for this, but sometimes the right way to handle this is simply to give up and go by hand. And just accept the amount of work that's going to be involved. You can see how hard and how much I'm working on this. And there, you can see a considerable difference from here. So it does make it look a lot better. And if I can keep the garbage off of this metal and also give it a nice smooth surface, that will have some tendency to help resist future oxidation. So I'm going to do the same thing on this other end here. And note the little notch for the spring connection. I'm going to keep that on top so that it doesn't tear apart the paper towel. And I'm grabbing really firmly here. Wipe it off to inspect, and you can see that I need to go back over this edge a bit more. The first couple of these I did took quite a long time. These are taking a little less. There's a fingerprint here, residual, but that's not mine. And that's part of why you're careful on how you handle metal parts and make sure that you wipe them down afterwards, because finger oils are acidic. And if left, they will etch into the metal. And in the process of doing this, I've probably gone through half a bottle of flitz. This is a 7.5 ounce bottle I'm using. And I usually don't go through that much. That ought to be enough for 6 months for me, but not in this case. And here I found that the best technique is to go up and down on around the mounting hook there, and then come back across. Remember, most of this is not going to be seen, so it is, as I said, overkill, but it makes a difference. You can tell it's still a little dull here compared to that, so I'm not done yet. I'm not trying to get it perfect. I just want to get a uniform brightness across the bar. And one thing I will remind you, don't forget to do the edges on this. So you can see how black that is here and where I just brushed. So you need to clean that as well, and go over it with the polishing cloth. Because the polishing cloth will help carry more of that grime out. You can see what kind of difference it made. So it's all about details with stuff like this, and it's all worth the effort. So I'll go back and finish those up a little later. Now I come to the really interesting bit. I'm going to go ahead and get a good amount on here. That is this spring. This really complicates polishing up this part. So I've got the uneven surface of the spring. I've got the rivet. I've got the rivet here, which is a limiter for travel distance, and I've got the two mounting rivets here. So I'm going to have to do this in steps, starting with the bottom, so that I don't pull through the rivets and tear my paper towel apart quickly. I'll be really aggressive here. Try to get it all in one pass. And I'm going to go back. It's an awful lot of grime. And now I'm going to focus on this front section right here. I apologize if I ever get out of frame here. This is not easy to work with and film at the same time. Trying to work around that rivet. Same thing here, I'm going to try to go in between them insofar as I can without running out of polish. And I'm working these off and on for 3 days now. And I still have to do the type bars themselves. And because the typewriter has been in front of me, things like this have gotten speckled up again, so I'm going to have to go over those briefly. And I really am exerting a decent amount of pressure here. Part of why it's taking so long, my arms get tired really fast. we're at. Okay. So this area here obviously needs a bit more work. There are things I have here that I can't do with a paper towel, but that's the next stage. Yeah, it's time for another paper towel. One of the things I want to avoid doing here is bending this if I can. I don't want to change the shape of it, even though I'm applying a lot of pressure. That's why I'm keeping the bend here, the offset, off of my desktop. It's looking better. Still need to do a little bit more down there. Like I said, not perfect. I'm just trying to get it even so that it all looks the same. All right. That looks pretty good. Now for the next step. That involves Q-tips. So I'm going to take some of the flits here. And now I'm going to go right along the edges of this spring so I can try to minimize the little line you see here around it. I'm not going to be able to eliminate it, but using the tip of the Q-tip, the cotton on it, I can get further in there. The curved surfaces are obviously going to be the hardest. And note, because the spring will flex a bit, let me show you that. So you can watch the little notch there. You can see that it will move up. If I put enough pressure on, I can actually move this out to the side and get a little bit further under so it looks even more uniform. Because we have this limit, I can't over-stress the spring. I'm going to go inside using the point. I'm going to try to make sure that I'm moving the spring back and forth while I'm doing this. I'm going to use the other end of this, the clean end, to wipe off whatever I can, and I'm not going to be able to get it perfect, especially in the middle there. And sometimes it can help if you're doing this, instead of running it sideways, to angle it a little bit so you get you don't have the little gap between the two areas that you've been working in. Now, put a little more on here, and I can go back and do a better job around the rivets. If I can get the Q-tip to cooperate. Same thing on the back side. As you can tell, this is a very long process. Next thing is to take a piece of t-shirt material and use it to clean the rest of the metal. And now notice I am not touching this anymore with my hands. I'm using the cloth to hold it, because this is kind of the final polish and check. Alright, let's see how I did and where I need some more attention. I think you need still a little bit more back here. The rivets are good enough. Here a little bit here. Okay, let's get the Q-tip back. Let's do the tail just a little bit more. Here, I'm going to wipe off the excess in the flits so that I don't have any glop on here. It's mostly the area around the hole that's the problem. Remember, the hook is going to be hidden. It isn't going to be seen. But like I said, this is only partially about appearance. One more time. All right. And I am pretty satisfied with that. Okay. Now, I need to do one more job. If you remember, there's a decent amount of dirt and oxidation. Just look at the difference there. This looked a lot like this before I started. So, there are areas where the plating has worn off, where it is now just simply polished. And to see those, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show up on camera. Yeah, there you go. You see the dark area right there? Well, that's where the plating started to wear off from the oxide. So I am going to take a paint pencil, a paint pen, this is chrome, and to give it something to help keep it from oxidizing, I'm going to go over those dark areas. Remember, I still need to go back into the edges. So I'm looking to where they're not reflecting, looking for the differences in color. And you can tell where I put the color on, but if you look at it from the side right here, you can see that it blends in very nicely. And again, this is not so much about appearance. This is matching it for the sake of making sure I don't detract. It's putting a coating on to prevent future oxidation. So now, I'm going to let this dry. I am going to let this soak for a while longer. And then I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to come back, do the edges here, because I can't do it while the paint's wet, so I actually did this in the wrong order. And then I will show you how to clean that. So we put the cap back on the flits, and I will be back in about an hour. All right, so time has passed, and I have gone and rinsed this off. You can see that much of the rust is gone. Still needs some additional work, but I'm going to go ahead and finish the edges on this first. So go ahead and get this brush wet. This is pretty good, so it won't take very long. I'm most concerned about the areas that are going to be exposed. Let's go ahead, wet those down. Just a little bit of polish here. Quick going over. Go for the soft cloth again. Just to eliminate the marks from my handling it. Actually, I really need to get a cleaner cloth, but this will do for now. All right, now I'm going to put this up here. I'm going to go to the key top. First thing I'm going to do is take the screw out of here. It's got a little washer on it. So the screw head and the washer go one side of the lever, and the key here is threaded and it goes the other side. So now for the washer, I'm going to take a bit of 1000 grit sandpaper. Get both sides. And these are usually cupped after spending so long attached to the keys. Wipe the residue off on the paper towel. If I can get it to move. Not perfect, but good enough. Now, for the screw head, there's always a burr or something on the top, so I like to try to get the slot cleaned up a little bit. This also helps polish it a bit. What I do is I try to get it so that if I'm moving linearly across the paper towel, it won't tear the paper towel up. And that will clean the edge up, and it'll also let me know that I've got all the garbage off. I'm not too concerned about this. All right, let's move that aside. Now I have to take care of the key top. You'd think this is going to be a very quick task. You'd be partially right. So I'm going to use the Q-tip again so I can get into the corner, hold it down with my fingers. Move the other side, get some more polishing compound on it. Now to do the side of the middle. And don't forget the edges. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And you'll see sometimes, like right there, where the rust has started to embed itself in the plastic. You want to try to make sure you get that out. Don't worry about getting all of it, but if it'll come easily, you do want to get rid of it. Now, I have to do the key top and the edges. Let's just start this running it in circles, back and forth. Clean it off, That already looks a lot better. Do the back here. Right. Now for the hard part, doing all the facets on the side. Now, paper towel being wet, these are going to tear it apart. So this is going to be kind of frustrating. I try to start half on. I try to go so I'm both hitting the wet section and the dry section of the paper towel at the same time. And I end up with that. You can see the difference between the two different facets. Now, there will be some kind of yellowing, a bit of orange stuff, orange looking stuff. You can get some of that off. You're not going to be able to get all of it off this way. This is the best way to get rid of that. You can see the paper towel already starting to give way. That's 2. And there are 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, there are 8 facets here. And you can see what I'm saying here. There's a little bit of yellow down here. I'm going to do my best to try to get rid of that. And that's oxidized plastic is what that is. It's not dirt. Well, plastic tends to do that over time. Okay, where am I at? Working on that one. You got to be careful that you don't roll the key top as you do this. You want to make sure you're working solidly on the facet. Do them one at a time. Some will take more effort than others. I don't think I'm going to get this one entirely clean. No, that's the best I'm going to do. Some of that's also fading from light. I should be able to do better than that. I think this is the last one. Nope, one more. Yeah. All right, so that looks quite a bit better. So you'll notice the difference in appearance. So the one on the left is substantially brighter and free of schmutz. So now I'm going to get my paint pen back out. Be careful handling these. They will unscrew if you're not careful. And I'm going to give this the same kind of treatment, being careful not to hit the plastic. I'm not sure what material these key tops are, but I bet it's some kind of celluloid. And I'm also going to do the same thing to the tail and the head of the screw. so they're less likely to rust in the future. Now to put the washer on with the cup side facing outward, towards the thread that is. I'm going to grab the key top here and thread it in. I'm going to put it just past the bracket, figure out which way is up. Remember, the key sits this way. Make sure the washer is the right side. Hold it down, tighten it up. Wipe this off again. For the sake of decoration, I'm going to get this back out. And I'm going to go over the area that's going to be visible outside the frame. Totally unnecessary, but it helps. Remember, I'm about preservation, not restoration. So I'm not trying to make this look like new. I'm just trying to make my own collection look as good as I can. And there we have it. So here is my original example. Here is the one we just did, and here is the filthy example. You can see these look pretty much the same now. So I have 3 more of these left before I'm done with the typewriter, and you can see now this is all real time, with the exception of waiting for the gel to soak. And remember, I could have put a puddle of this on the table here and then used a Q-tip to daub it and rub it on. And if I'm working on something on the typewriter, that is what I will do. Also remember, this stuff is water soluble. Don't try to use your cleaner to get it off. You will regret it. It will just make it 10 times worse. So if you can't rinse it off, wipe it off, and then use your cleaner to deal with the residue. So there we go. A lot of effort, but the result was worth it. And that's why a professional will only do limited cleaning on a typewriter, because it takes a heck of a lot of effort to do a pristine job. But like I said, for my collection, so for me the result matters, not the time. Once again, my name is Wayne, and this is Type Tested.